Hi, everybody. Today is March 2nd, 2023. It's distribution demo. Today we're talking about the productivity tools. Basically, it's the how do we track our work and our weekly reports kind of a thing, and all things related. And it seems like we do have several implementations within our teams. So the point was to share the implementations, make everybody aware that they exist, and maybe, kind of inspire people to either take those or do their own based on those, whatever you need. With that being said, Mitch, you get the floor.
Alrighty, let's share the screen. Desktop. So the one that I've been working with for a while is called One-on-One Report Bot. Effectively, when I started doing one-on-ones, I wanted a review of what I had been working on since our last one-on-one. And so originally this report would just use the GitLab merge requests API and then kind of sort them based on their status. And so here's an old example. You can see the ones that I had in dev, in review, merged, and closed. So really all you need to do is grab an API token and your user ID. And then by default, it'll search back the last 7 days, but that's configurable too. And then it really just prints out a markdown report. And then there's an optional flag to pass to create a snippet out of it. Just an easy place to dump that markdown table. And then if you want to search by any specific labels, you can do that too, just in case that's relevant to your workflow. So if you do create the snippet, then it's printed out in your CLI when you run the tool, and then it opens up to something like this. If there's anything wrong with it, you can always edit it. It comes out as private by default, so you can just edit it to make it public. And then you kind of have a history of all your one-on-ones to go back to, which is nice. I'm recently working on moving over to the events API, and that gives you a little bit more information, such as issues. And so you can see that from here. This is one of my more recent reports. Now, by each project, I get a list of what I did with issues and what I did with merge requests, including approved, closed, and merged. And it splits it up by project like that. And then typically what I do, if there's anything I want to call out, I'll just, since it's just markdown, I'll just bold it. So I'll put a couple of asterisks on either side of each line that I want to call out. And that's about it. Just kind of gives an overview of what I was working on that week. Nothing too interesting on the command line. You just basically call go run, or if you want to use the Docker image, you can do that too. Pass the flags and it prints this out. So this is what it looks like in the back end if you don't create the snippet out of it. That's really it.
All right, anybody has any questions, follow-ups on this one before I jump into what?
May I'd like to ask. This is pretty cool. Good job there. Do you feel like it would be possible also like to bring up comments that you did on issues, like any interaction, not that you just close the issue, but bring up comments or any interaction? Yeah,
definitely. So, oh, go ahead, Dimitri.
No, I think you will see that it is possible. Like what I'm doing versus what Mitch was doing, and it's just jumping a little bit ahead. And I'm basing my reports on events rather than specific items. So I get everything, but there are some gotchas. So
yeah, I'm recently switching over to events too, but of course you kind of have to do this merging when there's multiple events related to one kind of object, which you really want to report the object. And so on my to-do list right now is like including commenting on an issue without closing it. Because right now it's just basically if you open or close one, but what if you're just kind of commenting on one, for example, like a triage issue, or reviewing a merge request without approving it. So like you go through and leave some comments or suggestions, but you didn't yet approve it. That's not reflected yet. So just finding different ways to work with the events API. So I've just been tinkering with that and different approaches to that to make as robust of a report as possible. But it's already an improvement over the MR API because that was only MRs. At least now we're getting issues, but I definitely want those components. I'm sure there's other things missing too, but that, like you pointed out, I'm sure is missing right now.
But that's already really cool. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks.
Please go on, Dimitri.
Oh, no worries. We have plenty of time. Anybody else? Any questions? All right. So with that being said, I'll try to share my screen. My computer is misbehaving today, so I hope it's going to work. Share. There we go. Okay. So what I'm using is, like I said, I'm using the events and I'm parsing them and I'm sorting them. So here's my weekly reports project that does all of that stuff, and it uses, under the hood, it uses my old GL workflow, the stuff that I have been producing before I started to work more with the GLab CI. So there's that script weekly report, which is basically, it grabs all the events before, after date, but then it has that, exactly what Mitch was referencing, like aggregate those events into more digestible something. And then from there, everything else is built. So this is what's under the hood. And but I did go a little bit further than that. So this is what it looks like in the end. That's my report for all the activity for the week. And then it also does do the work plan. And work plan is basically everything that is currently assigned to me. And what I have done is I just pick out the items within the two, like within several milestones, because we currently have, previously we just had one milestone that we worked on, but right now we do have this next 1 to 3 releases. So I had to expand whatever I had to actually process multiple milestones. So it does that now. So the stuff that you see here, actually, it also works, except for the reporting. Reporting takes a bit of time for all the querying and everything. So that is done from my pipeline on schedule. And we can actually take a look at what it produces. Generate MD. There should be, oh no, I only saved Markdown. I didn't save the JSON that it produces. But basically, yeah, all of those tools, they use the API to the best of their ability. The events I have expanded because events only gives you the pointers to the MRs, issues and stuff like that. So you have to re-resolve it and fetch the data from that. So that one I had to go a little bit deeper on. But otherwise, I'm using all the other tools on the command line as well. So for example, we can do milestone 510. I can do, say, my MRs, and I can output it as text, and it'll just query for any MRs that I am working on for the milestone 510. You will notice that I specified 510, but I got the next 1 to 3 releases here too, but that's because I have another variable called milestones that actually pre-populates. It sets the base milestones that I want to see, and then it goes into everything else. But if I want to go like everything that I have, I can do this. It drops a lot more, and it's like the stuff that doesn't have any milestones. Or if I wanted to do something fancier, I can actually do it by the label as well. I don't remember if it's label or labels. Let's see. Yeah, it's labeled. So none of my milestone work isn't deliverable right now, but if I, yeah, I guess that's what it is. But if I go, for example, for my reviews, I should be able to see something. Yeah. So basically I have 3 different items. So my MRs, reviews, and to-dos. And then I have a big giant thing that aggregates them all. And that's my work. So it iterates over everything that I have. The to-do list, the reviews, and the MRs. And obviously they can overlap. I did not do deduplication here. So if the issue references MR or vice versa, it's just going to be there. That's all there is to it. So that stuff is basically all a bunch of shell scripts over the GLab CI, GLab CLI. It actually can use either GLab or GLflow, and both of them have their own funny limitations that I listed in our notes. And both tools, like my GLflow has a problem with pagination when it comes to API calls, because it doesn't paginate them. And the GLab CLI is actually having the reverse problem. The only thing that can be unpaginated is the API call. So I'm using mostly that. I tried to use GraphQL, but GraphQL does not fetch everything. So that was a bust. For me, I spent a little bit of time trying to kind of navigate that. That did not work out. One thing that to remember when you're building or using any of those tools is that they will pick up the confidential issues. So you have to, and if you're working on something security related, and we don't want that to be exposed to public, you may want to try to either filter them out or just publish, instead of publishing the whole thing, maybe publishing just a reference to the issue, so that if person doesn't have access, they won't get any information out of that. I already mentioned that reports and plans are different. Like reports is something historical and they take up time. So I don't have anything in command line. Well, I can generate them in command line as well, same command, but it's not as useful. The plans are a lot more useful to me because I use it now on the daily when I'm just, okay, what am I working on today? So I just pull up and just, okay, I want to work on my MRs. So I'll just pull up this, do the MRs. I'll just go. That's it. Okay. Nothing on deliverables. I don't have to do anything today. Yeah. Another gotcha I faced is the definition, what is current milestone? That's why I process 2 milestones now, because to pick out the current milestone, it takes a little bit of heuristic, and I'm not even sure if the stuff that I created is proper, but I'm doing my damn best. So what I'm doing, I'm just querying the API for the milestones for the GitLab org, and I then sort them as if they were all versions. Stuff that cannot be mapped to number, I just create the dummy version 999999. So it goes way below, and then I'm just grabbing the first from the top, the youngest version, so to speak, the one that is closer to the top. And that's how I determined that, 1510 is my current thing. So one thing that I did not show in my report for the work plan, the way I generate that section, I'm actually I did show that. That I do put the milestone next to the item, so it's a little bit easier to figure out where it's coming from. And I think that's about that. Any questions?
So you convert to HTML. How are you doing that?
Oh, glad you asked. I'm being lazy. I'm just generating the MD file, and then I'm doing the this guy, panda. And I did create a little bit of the styling here, but that was minor. And then just dump it into the report and publish it with the pages. Because pages also allows, like, since I'm publishing to the pages, when you define the project, you can define it as private. So it's not visible to anybody outside, because I'm not filtering out, like I mentioned, the confidential issues. I don't filter them out. So I went the route of, I'll just publish everything, but I'll make it private between myself and my manager, or whoever else wants to see that. I can include you guys in my project, that's no problem. But yeah, that was one way of dealing with that.
Yeah, I just had the merge request API has a field saying whether or not it's confidential. So I just, if it's confidential, I overwrite the title for the MR, but I still link to it, because if you can't see
Okay,
it,
yeah.
So either
Yeah.
way. Hmm.
Yeah, I went the lazy route. That was easier for me to make.
Do you have a way to go see previous reports easily?
You can fetch them from the pipelines, really. I don't store, because I always publish them to the same place. If you can see for, oh no, this one is actually, I wanted to show you the new format because I added this little section just yesterday. But typically there is a standard link to it. Let me see if I can muster it out. No. There one. So that's the standard one, and there's only one. Yeah, okay, fine. Never mind. I'll sort it out later. But yeah, only one is being published to the pages, and the rest of them are just accessible from the pipelines. That's all. And in pipelines, it's easy to kind of grab them as they are all scheduled ones. So source from schedule. And you get yourself any one of them.
You just have it scheduled to run before your 101.
Yeah. So kind of early morning. Any other questions? I did link, by the way, the I hope I did. Yeah, I did link the public version of my reports repo, because the project itself is all private, but I did the mirroring into the public section. So if anybody's curious, go ahead and grab it here. Well, hearing crickets.
Yeah, I would just add that I found both projects really cool. I've been doing similar stuff, but manually, not automated at all. But I have like the habit of doing this for a year now, and like it really helps me. Like when I do self-assessment on those periodic assessments, like to go back to those and see what I can relate to GitLab values and those kinds of things. I remember I was doing the way I do it, like I keep track of a very big issue on GitLab. Then every week I just like keep updating that issue manually. And I can see how this can help me in my process. But I feel like some kind of it needs to be also, or not that needs, but I would like to have something that is also like very searchable, that you could like search for periods. And like because I want to check what I did for the last 6 milestones. So, and
there you can actually do that. The reporting that I have here, I'll try to show you. Where is this thing? There. So the default says 7 days ago, but you can adjust it. You can adjust from and to date, so you can actually have a report for any period of time, including a full year.
That's perfect, yeah.
And if you want to run it from the command line, because that would give you even more kind of control, but then you will have to invest into setting up the GL workflow. That's a Python project, so you'll have to install the dependencies and things like that. But it can actually do the JSON output, and it can format it differently. It can actually, because the default here is, where's my weekly report? Right there. So aggregate, breathe. You can actually do counts on each event for each specific project, or whatever you were doing, which means that you will have some sense of weight. How much time did you spend there? It's not precise, but it's something. I've been tinkering with that, but then I kind of dropped the idea because sometimes it's not representative at all. Like you get a huge MR that you're reviewing. It's like, okay, there's only one event. I assigned it to myself, and a week later, I'm still working through it. There's no events.
Yeah.
So it's a mixed bag, really. Anybody else? Hearing nothing. Oh, somebody will be hitting the stop recording. That's it for today. Thank you, everybody.